This year, as a freelance filmmaker, I turned over a little north of £230,000, approximately $287,000, my very best year as a freelance filmmaker yet. In this video, I'm going to break down how and where I made that money, highest and lowest day rates, buyouts, passive income, where I invested money, and after all of that, where the net profit, which is the amount remaining after all my expenses are taken away before tax, stacked up against previous years. My name's Scott Peters, a director, cinematographer, and as you'll see in this video, I often play a number of other roles too. Another year has already passed, and I'd like to once again start by saying this is not intended as any sort of brag. I know there's tons of people out there making nowhere near this sort of money, and also a whole bunch making a hell of a lot more. I also know that this has been a really rubbish year for a lot of the industry, so please don't watch this if you're easily upset. This is an attempt at some transparency in the industry around a subject I've always found difficult to learn about myself. This is also my 13th full official year as a working filmmaker, but I've been making videos of some level since I was a kid. So whilst I've only been full-time-ish for 13 years, I've actually been doing this filmmaking thing for something like 24 years from when I first picked up a camera. That's not to say anyone watching this thinking about a career in this world will take nearly as long as I have to make these sorts of rates, but I just want to put it all in perspective for you. So, the numbers, the rates, the days, and so much more. Let's break things down into the different roles that I played to make these earnings. In this, my most successful financial year to date. As solely a director this year, I made a total income of £75,405 over what is technically just 35 working days, which, if you watch any of my other content, you know is a load of rubbish, because as a director, you only get paid for the shoot days, but there's actually everything else outside of that, which is always way more than the shoot days. So actual days work, I have no idea. It was months and months of time, but 75 grand in 35 days sounds pretty good, doesn't it? My top day rate for a commercial that I have not made a video about because I couldn't was 7 grand, which was pretty good. I hasten to add that that was not really just a day rate, but 7 grand, best day rate I have ever made. As purely a cinematographer, my total income for the year was £7,756, and that was earned over 5.5 days of shooting, which as a cinematographer pretty much is 5.5 days. I think that half day was actually a recce day, half rate for the recce, with my top day rate being £1,354, which I believe was the APA going top rate at the start of the year. As a director DP, someone doing both camera and lighting and directing the thing, my income total for the year was £35,443. That was over 25.5 days worked, with a top day rate of £5,100. Actual days worked, not a million miles off 25.5 days, but because of the directing side of things, it would again be a fair few more days than this. Not nearly as many more as my sole directing jobs, as these were more for content-y, straight to social media type jobs where agencies and clients seem to give less of a shit. I welcome that because it means less prep, which I don't welcome less prep. Now I'm contradicting myself. It's not that I want to prep less, I want to prep loads, but it's the time taken up with meetings and opinions from agency and clients that is the time I don't love. Because they're hiring you for your tastes and opinions, but they're also not. Depends who they are and what mood they're in. As a videographer this year, I worked just 6 days. That's the everything man job, where it's probably just me, maybe a producer. I'm doing the camera, I'm doing the sound, I'm doing the lighting. I'm probably shooting on slightly lower end equipment. And yeah, 6 days is what I did, making a total income of £6,940. Sometimes that would have included my lower end kit as well. My top day rate on any one of those jobs was £1,388. As a producer, I worked just 2 days with an income total of £1,000. That's £500 as my top day rate. As per usual, it looks like I mostly worked as an editor. Call me an editor, don't call me a director or cinematographer, but I will frown at you because I do not like editing. And I don't advertise my editing. I don't want to edit, but I'd always rather get the job done right. And also money is money when you're trying to earn a living. As an editor, I worked 72 total days. And the income there was £44,789 with a top day rate of 650 quid. But most regularly it was between 450 and 500 quid a day. I have been editing now for most of my living life. And there are past videos that you can go and watch of mine where you can kind of see where I was at what point in my career. There's plenty of days where I've edited for nothing, 50 quid, 150 quid. Then I was on 300 for years. And now I sit more around the 500 mark, but I have got a lot of experience and I am very fast. No ego, just facts. Animator, and Animator is a bit of a stretch, but I wanted to compare it comparatively to previous years. It's mostly just After Effects solo work when I'm saying Animator. And I worked just one day as just an After Effects animator, making a total income of £500. As a camera operator, I worked just one day. And it was for a meager £475, which I guess as a camera operator that is a standard rate. I think I was actually initially offered £350 and I went back saying, won't do it for anything less than £475. And they said, yeah, that's fine, we can do that. So always challenge if you're not happy with what you're getting. And if they can do it, they'll do it. If they can't, they won't. I don't regret doing that job. It was a nice day out. Got to spend it with my friend Nathan and some other people that I met for the first time. Had a good lunch and got to visit Brighton Football Club. But was it sexy? No, it was not. Passive income I make in 4 ways, or I try and make in 4 ways. Previous years, not always. The first one is royalties. This is from a TV show that I directed in 2019 now. And the royalties, sometimes they're rubbish, sometimes they're less rubbish. This time they're somewhere in between. I got £308, which is kind of rubbish, but also I didn't have to do anything for 4 years for that, 5 years for that. So it's pretty cool. Person-to-person rental. Fat Llama, I've talked about them a lot before. It's pretty rubbish, the rates these days. I did actually put my prices ever so slightly up after last year's video of realizing how rubbish they were. And I made a whopping £293 through rentals from Fat Llama this year, which, to be honest, is not worth it with the amount of back and forth questions asked by people renting, having to arrange time for collection, having to sort the kit out. It's not worth it. But I'll probably carry on doing it anyway because, direct rentals though, rentals where I took the more higher end gear with me on jobs and would have saved the production money because I would have put it on at a very competitive rate. But I would also made myself back a fair amount of my investments. Direct rentals, £16,701, which is the most that I've ever made in 1 year of direct rentals. Stock footage. I finally sold some stock footage. I don't think I even mentioned it last year because I didn't sell anything that year or the year before. I sold 3 clips over on Film Supply, netting me a whopping £374, better than a kick in the nuts. So £17,676 passively, or somewhat passively. I mean, nothing's ever truly passive. There's a lot of prep, maintenance, and handover time with the rental-related stuff, and I had to give up my unpaid time to shoot the stock in the first place. But the royalties, I mean, you could argue they were quite underpaid jobs in the first place, that particular TV show, but I'm calling it a win. That feels like real passive income. As always, there's a few anomalies that haven't been included here, as well as the excessive costs of actually being a filmmaker year on year, insurances, subscriptions, etc. You can watch a video here to learn more about what they might be, as well as both wanting and needing to invest in gear upgrades along the way. Again, much like last year, there might be a little bit of movement here either way once the accountant has checked that I've inputted everything correctly into my accounting software. And I can't stress enough that this is not the amount of money that is just sitting in my bank account at the end of the year. Taxes take a pretty hefty cut out of this, firstly from a business perspective, and then when I actually withdraw the money, I get hit again, as well as putting money back into the business in these investments that I talk about. But after the cost of sales and admin, at the end of the financial year ending April 2024, I made a net profit of £149,780.83. And although I worked a lot of days, I think stacked up against next to the previous best earning year, which was 2022, I actually worked a little bit less, 198 days that year, and somewhere in the ballpark region. I say ballpark because there was so much prep time in a job leading up to Christmas, which is still somehow ongoing, and it's made all of this quite hard to quantify. Somewhere in the ballpark of 180 days is what I worked in this financial year. That's a conservative estimate. Seemingly a lot of cash over not that many days, but at what real cost? Aside from investment of years and years of my life into learning, improving my knowledge and skills, loans and risks taken on buying kit, trying and failing to advance my career far more than trying and succeeding, continuous countless rejections across all areas of the industry, with many, many more to come too, I'm sure. I'm really not saying any of this for any sort of, poor Scott reaction. If anything, I've learned from posting on the internet that it will probably more likely invoke a "f you handsome ginger sort of reaction. But again, I just want to put all of this into some realistic perspective for you. And with that, point out that when I was busy over the last financial year, my work-life balance wasn't very balanced at all. Not too long into the start of the last financial year, somewhere in the middle of May, when I was at the end of a 12-day shoot stint of working most of my livable hours, I experienced burnout for what I can now call the first real time in my life. I've never experienced anything like it in my career or life up until this point, and I honestly never want to experience anything like it again. But it is a bit of a struggle to keep that at bay. It really did feel like the world was ending around me, and I couldn't, and probably still can't, properly explain it. And it was all because I was overworking myself and taking far too much on. For whatever reason, I've grown up always fearing the future a little bit, financially speaking. Always working more hours and trying to do a bit more. Not for the want of a lavish lifestyle or anything like that, but just for financial security and hopefully a less worryful future. That, coupled with a drive and want to do better and be better, something that not just us in the film industry strive for, which all equates to finding it really hard to say no to and turn down what often sound like bigger and better jobs when they come along. If it hasn't hit you yet, the burnout and the sacrifice that comes along with working so much, then take it from me, don't let it. It's just money. You'll always find a way to make more. And it's also just a video, an ad, a TV program, a movie. No one's going to care about it in a few weeks, months, at most years' time, no matter how much thought and effort you put into it. Say no to that job, go out to drinks with those friends, and go and visit that family member you haven't seen in ages. It's just not worth it. Bummed you out at all? Or maybe you're feeling inspired, or maybe neither. But hopefully this was a little bit insightful and might give you some way of basing where you're at and how you position yourself in your own career, depending on where you are at. Join me next year for probably a lot lower earnings as I try really hard to say no a lot more. But I've tried that before as well, so we'll see how that goes. Watch this video next for more career money insights, and make sure to subscribe for more semi-helpful tips and interesting insider industry knowledge.